G'day everyone, it's Taggy here. Hope you're doing super well. Welcome back to this exciting episode on Planet Coaster 2 and my little excavator digger animation, which I've been working slowly on in the background. Something that's going to feature in an upcoming collab. You might be able to guess who that is with by the manufacturer printed on the excavator. But until then, I thought it was a perfect backdrop for a conversation on moving platforms, and probably more importantly, why I don't want to create animatronics anymore. So we've just had update 6. I had a quick chance to try out the new animation types, the ultra slow, the very slow, very useful. I'm glad to have them in. But I wanted to talk about, just the reality of how difficult it is to get something like this actually going in the game. And moving platforms were a fantastic addition, and they sort of cracked open the door a little bit. You know, there was a bit of bright light coming through and I got super excited about all the potential options. But the reality has set in, and I'm actually at the point now where I don't really want to create animations like this anymore. It's just too fiddly, it takes too long. And so I thought, hey, we need to have a conversation in the community and get some momentum going for Frontier to hear our feedback, because I know many of you have similar ideas and similar concerns about this. And it's of no design fault, because these weren't really designed for this type of animation. They were made for simple things, simple movements, you know, rotating and moving back and forth. But they gave us the ability to nest motors on top of each other. So these moving platforms can then create skeleton structures for complex characters and all sorts of fun stuff, which you've probably seen in many of my videos, like my drone show and my T-Rex and all that cool stuff. But yeah, it's left me wanting more. And so, hey, Frontier, they do listen, right? They've implemented so many things that we've asked for. And so let's have a conversation. I want to hear your comments, but I'm going to take you through my top things for improving moving platforms. So let's get stuck in. Okay, number one, this is the easiest. Let's just be able to turn off the visibility of these moving platforms, because they are so big, we can't hide them within meshes. And if you're trying to create a skeleton or something like that, your objects are going to have to be really, really big. And the only other way to do that is to hide them on a plane. So you can have moving platforms rotating and whatnot on 2 dimensions, but if you go into a 3rd dimension, then you need them to be inside the model that you're trying to move. So if you think about an arm that rotates up and down, and you've got a bone that bends your wrist, that bone needs to move with your wrist. You can't hide it somewhere else. So just have a very simple toggle. I would have a invisibility toggle on off, just like we've got with invisible paths now, and that would be awesome. Number 2 would be keyframe animation. And so currently a moving platform like this, you can pick an animation type, but that is just a pre-baked animation. So when I pick medium, it's going to rotate a number of times and then return back to its absolute position. So I've added it to this trigger, and you can see that as I press play, it'll go around and then slowly ease back to its default start. Now that's fine and it serves its purpose, but there's no way to control or do finite movements and have the rotation stay where it was put. And so a keyframe animation, we would set a keyframe at a certain time in the sequencer and then have the moving platform rotate to a new position and then stay there. And the ability then gives us the control to create interactive elements that might trigger and form a new position, and that would open up a lot of doors for interactive elements and things of that like. So keyframe animations are pretty typical, but the way that it's currently set up, this is just a visual representation of a pre-baked animation in the software. So what would be nice to see is be able to click here in the sequencer, create a keyframe, rotate the moving platform to its new position, and then have it animate from the previous keyframe relative to its new position. I think one of the things that makes Minecraft so successful is that it caters for a huge range of players. So you've got your creative types who just want to make things look cool, and your survivalists who love the process of turning one thing into another and crafting. You've got the real engineers who use redstone to design contraptions and program and build amazing creations that, you know, really blow your mind. So in Planet Coaster 2, I think they do a good job at the creative. The simulation still needs some work, but the engineering side of thing is just sort of that, as I said, that door's being cracked open. And so one of the last things I'd love to see is, for number 3, is the ability to have conditional logic in the game. So imagine a sequencer that could trigger one animation after another. Now these animations look like they're being triggered after each other, but it's just basically a sequence of animations in a timeline. What I'd love to see is if we had the ability to read the state of something. So let's imagine you've got a light and you change it to the color red, and then you could have another condition that says if the light is red, do something or play an animation. And so you might be able to have user interactions that trigger a sequence of events and then creates a conditional logic. So the if-then sort of scenario, basic programming built into the Planet Coaster 2 sequencer would be awesome. So a conditional trigger would be the third thing I'd love to see. And the fourth thing I'd like to see in this game is the ability for other properties besides rotation and distance to be animatable. So things like opacity, color. You can imagine in this scenario with the digger here, as it scoops up the dirt, you could have a piece of scenery that becomes opaque and visible in the bucket, and then it moves with the bucket, and then as it empties the dirt, it would then show that the dirt is no longer there by making it transparent again. Little tricks like that. So more animatable properties, not necessarily on the movement platforms themselves, but why not add those to the sequencer so we can control color, opacity of things like glass or whatever else that we might be editing. And while we're at it, let's make those entry gates to rides invisible too. A great example of why keyframe animation would be good is so we could bring this ball to a rest. But under this scenario, it's just going to keep looping with endless energy as it does. And you can see the ball's attached to the vertical motion panel, which is then attached to a horizontal slider. And the horizontal slider is attached to this rotating platform. The plank of wood's also attached to the rotating platform, and it sort of gives this effect that the ball's bouncing up and down this plank. And you know, it might serve some purpose, but it's not exactly very realistic. And to try and bring this ball to a rest is very difficult without nesting multiple pieces of moving platforms to sort of counter the motion. But it will always come back to a full bounce again. There's no way to stop it indefinitely. So keyframe animations would enable that type of interactivity. And if you can think of things where you want to have something set, like for example a door that opens and stays open, or a train crossing that comes down and stays down until the train is passed, being able to set keyframes would enable all of that. Well, thanks for joining me on this one, guys. There's the 4 things that I would change for moving platforms if we could. Now, I know Frontier, that would be a big ask, and I don't even know if it's possible, but hey, it's worth having the discussion. So add your comment below, let me know what you think. How would you change the game? What would you improve? Would you do anything differently than what I've suggested? We've got to keep in mind that it has to work with the current system. It won't need to be able to break other things that are already in there, so you know, animations have to be on top of. Keyframes would have to be on top of baked animations. I'm not sure how that would work, but anyway, it's worth thinking about. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful week and enjoy update 6. Cheers everyone, bye.